Good afternoon. Welcome to such an important panel. Axel is going to help us moderate. Everyone knows him. Welcome, Lenin, Gonzalo, and Diego. We're still waiting for Enrique to join us at any time. Thank you very much for making some time in your agenda to share with our audience your knowledge and opinions in regards to online gaming, which is the main concern of our industry nowadays, where land based casinos are mainly closed. There are so many sanitary restrictions that don't allow us to have regular operations. There's lot of lack of knowledge, a lot of uncertainty, and little trust in regards to how online casinos operate. What are the next steps? What should we do with sports betting and live gaming? And what options we have in slots or land-based casinos. So we would like to hear from you, experts, vendors, and operators. What can you tell our audience in regards to this important and new topic? Because it's still very new for our industry. Go ahead, Axel. Thank you very much. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? First of all, I would like to thank Elizabeth and the whole team of CGS Cloud 2021 for giving me the opportunity to be here. Today, we are discussing with an excellent panel with professionals, expert professionals from the Latin American industry, Mr. Diego Salas, who is the sales manager from Altenar, located in Colombia. We also have Mr. Enrique Romero, marketing director from NetBet from Mexico, and Mr. Lenin Castillo, the online operations manager from Online Entertainment in Mexico. Also with us, we have Mr. Gonzalo Perez, general manager from Apuesta Total in Peru. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here and sharing with us your knowledge in regards to the industry. As Elizabeth said before, we are in a post-pandemic world which has hit the physical commerce in general, especially land-based casinos. They have not been the exception. Because of the different sanitary restrictions and lockdowns, people, little by little, have tried to go back to the regular lives. However, there are still some rejections because of lack of knowledge from the government authorities, as well as lack of clear communication for the customers. And that is why this accelerated the transformation of the industry, and it also made us not delay this scenario anymore. We had to transfer to the online services. So I would like to once again welcome you to this panel, and I would like to invite Mr. Diego Salas to share your opinion, so you can tell us about some of the points of view that Altenar has had as a company, as a online gaming platform vendor. Can you tell us the requirements that you had to have and the adjustments that you had to make in order to make your industry keep going? Go ahead. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to be part of this panel. I am really happy. And to start talking about what you asked, as vendors, one of the things that we did, for example, in Europe, in Malta, where we're located, we've seen the strength and the profitability that the online operations have. In Latin America, even though we've been through this pandemic, this pandemic has helped sort of most operators to take a look at the online operations. Our perspective in terms of the online operations is that this offers great profitability, even more so nowadays. One of the things that we still see is the resistance that many operators in Latin America have to move to the online world. But nowadays, we've already seen the great openness that we've seen countries that are very well regulated, such as Colombia, others that are trying to change the regulations, which is important because an important point in Latin America that we need to analyze is that each country has their own approach, which is completely different from others. I suppose that with this pandemic and the adjustments that you had to make with your clients and you as a company, I suppose that you transformed and made adjustments in your platforms, right? So what's your perspective? What are the main suggestions or changes that you had to make for operations to become strong in this online world? Well, in Latin America, most definitely, one of the things that helped us a lot in order to expand our brand was first the relevance of the online platforms in pandemic times. Nowadays, we see more sports betting in the online platforms, and it has created a bigger presence in the offer of each one of us. The other thing is most definitely the retail factor. It's still very important, which helps operators to have a strong presence. If you have land-based casinos, that makes it easier to have user traffic. This together with the local payment methods, which we call localization. Each country has its own particularities, and their payment methods are very important to make it easier for users to have their accounts and collected their earnings, and we have tried to teach our customers about this. Excellent. Thank you very much. I would like to share with you the opinion of Mr. Lenin Castillo. From the operator's point of view, you are very big in the online world. Can you share a little bit about what happened during the pandemic and post-pandemic as well? Because we are still in this pandemic world. What have been the suggestions or the efforts that you've made as operators, as a company, to make the customers trust in the online world? Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the invite to share with this panel with my colleagues. I hope that the audience is healthy at home. My name is Lenin Castillo, and I'm the online operations director of the Logrand Entertainment Group. We're based in Mexico. We have been in the industry for 14 or 15 years. So we are a company that is well recognized, and we are even our benchmark for the Mexican market in terms of land-based casinos, betting, and the digital world. And approximately 3 years ago, we made the strategic decision to start in the digital market in a formal way because of the evolution that we saw. Because the public was, or the possible customer were adopting the online world. There was more usage of smartphones, and there was more interaction with the internet and with online betting. So since we knew this, and we already knew the operation structure that we wanted to have, we knew what the customers were looking for, what they were interested in, besides betting itself, because maybe they wanted to know who they were interacting with. So we believe that that was a critical point in order to develop our online business plan. As I mentioned, this business plan began 3 years ago, and this was incentivized or strengthened by this pandemic, actually, because as it was mentioned before by my colleagues, operations closed, and those operations in the land-based casinos didn't allow in some cases for people to have that distraction. And that's why, since we already had a platform and a very well defined strategy that looked to expand the user experience from the physical world to the digital world, and at the same time to offer people from the digital world something extra in the physical world, that ended up helping us or support us in our growth. So this adoption was accelerated because of this pandemic, and then we tried to identify which other elements besides that certainty of who they were interacting with, something that was also critical, and a sort of suggestion that we make is that you need to have a clear business plan to clearly know what you are going to offer and how this is going to be given to the user. How are we going to see that user? In our case, we don't see land-based casinos as a competition, but as a complement. This is like an extension of the experience to more environments, which allows us to work closely with content providers in order to have offers that are equivalent in the physical and digital world, so the customer can actually see that they can have or they can find the same type of services and even expanded services that are natural from the digital world. So for us, something crucial was not just the business plan, but also to focus on the customer and to have an operation structure that knows the market. Most definitely, the tools and technology are critical to have a close relationship with service providers for platforms and payment methods and so on and so forth. However, the knowledge of the needs and particularities of the markets and users was critical. And among these, well, the operational structure was also relevant, and we're already operating with this. And this included a staff that deeply knows how the digital world works, and they know about the betting world and gaming world, and they know the local market at the same time. And that combination of things has allowed us to significantly grow and penetrate the market, offering alternatives nowadays that land-based casinos have limitations, but thinking in a mid and long term. So this is not a substitution, but an actual complement, so people can find that there are differences in terms of the interaction with the organization at a physical and digital level. For us, that's the vision that we have. We have just one single customer. Thank you, Lenin. And the last thing that I wanted to ask you was, well, I think that the strategy that you have is excellent, and you already had the structure plan in terms of transferring to the physical to the online world. However, I would like you to tell us about the strengths that you had in order to have that communication so the physical customer could move to the online world. Of course, we worked closely with the collaborators within our organization who are already experienced and who already have contact with the people in the land-based casinos, because at the end of the day, that's the link. We contact them and we communicate users. For us, it was relevant for us. We didn't want them to see us very far away, but to have a very personalized work. So we contacted our users one-to-one, not just because we wanted to send a digital message and do it in a mass way, but actually we identified who were the profiles or the clusters of customers that we had, what their habits were, and we worked together with the people who already knew them, who interacted with them in the land-based casinos from the past. So that could be a sort of link or interpreter, so to speak, so they could invite them to try out the products and services that we had in the digital world. To us, this was very important because as an organization, we didn't see each other as competition, but as one single organization. And we managed to do that through clear communication. And for us, that was one of the main relevant points, together with the tools that allowed us to have the information in real time with appropriate communication and to then individualize that to each one of the customer. Thank you very much, Lenin. Gonzalo, everyone knows that one of the most important brands with the biggest influence in Peru is your company. Almost everyone knows you in the industry. So I would like you to share your knowledge and everything that you had to face from the time the pandemic started, the closure of the land-based casinos. You have a lot over there. And what was that challenge for you as an organization in order to move to the online world? Or maybe you already had something before the pandemic. Thank you very much, Axel, and greetings everyone who's here in this panel. In Apuesta Total, most definitely, we are a brand that dedicated a lot to the retail growth. Why? Because historically, we also have had a lot of experience in this segment. Besides, as part of the organization, just as Lenin said, we have slots at a national level, so this helped us a lot to work in this segment. So when we opened our land-based casinos, that's why we bet on this segment, because it created a lot of more dynamism in the industry, and that's how we got to 410 land-based casinos by the beginning of the year 2020. But on March 15, we received the news that we had to close everything. Obviously, this was a very big hit. This created a lot of uncertainty among us. But somehow, we had contemplated this already because the situation was not well. Since August 2019, we had already started implementing our digital platform, but obviously this wasn't our strongest suit, or not as much as we expected. Obviously, this has grown a lot and has had a big impact. However, things started to solve. By mid-March or April, there were no sports competitions. So even though we had a platform and we could be working, there was nothing to sell. So as Diego said, there were other types of events like online games or table tennis, or maybe soccer in some countries. But by the end of June, the government started authorizing the opening of some stores, not specifically land-based casinos, but shops in general. That's when we found a window to start operating. At the beginning, it was very hard because there was a lot of concern, and the concern remains, actually, especially in countries from South America. We are in the peak of a second wave. So even though it's true that nowadays we can operate, there are a lot of restrictions in terms of capacity, and also the concern from people themselves, because there are certain restrictions and they are concerned about going to our casinos. So the activities started again, and by mid-January, February, we had to close again, pretty much all of it. We open again in the beginning of March, and we are in erratic times in terms of the retail world. But if we see the digital world, yes, we have grown quite a lot, and this was thanks to the slots and live casinos, virtual games. And as you know, unfortunately, land-based casinos in Peru were not able to open until December last year, and they were closed again in January. So that has made people to look for this type of entertainment, because bars are not open, cinemas are not open, so there aren't many options for entertainment. So I think that we are an interesting alternative for this type of audience. Besides, there's an emotional charge here from the population. And obviously, there's an impact on the economy in the next weeks. We have presidential elections, and we're also going to elect the Congress, and that creates certain instability. But the results that we got from last year and that we are having this year so far are still increasing. Actually, what has happened in the Peruvian market, well, we have a lot of betting options because that makes the market quite strong. For example, this makes the segment see as a serious segment in the face of the industry and the consumers and the government, which eventually will look for a regulation. So I think that the situation in Peru is quite good from the sports betting point of view, and we still have a lot to grow. Gonzalo, just as I asked Lenin, as you said, you are a very strong brand in terms of the of retail in physical operations. So, how did you communicate with customers that were used to the land-based casinos so they could move to those platforms that you had to run and design and upload pretty much in record time, I suppose, in order to make that change? Because as you said, you briefly opened physical operations, but then you have to close them again. I suppose that that was because of the peaks of the waves. And of course, it could happen again. We don't know when this will happen again. Hopefully, it won't. Hopefully, we can overcome the situation. However, this is the reality. And this can keep happening. So, how did you communicate with the customers who were used to everything related to retail so they could move to the online world? What did you do? Look, this was a very complex situation because, as you know, in Peru, bets are anonymous in the retail world. So we didn't have this information firsthand. However, we had done some contests and raffles in retail. For example, people from the Champions League, from the American Cup. And with that database, we were able to contact them. Obviously, we also had to work with the cashiers and supervisors and the commercial managers who knew the customers. We also had to do phone selling. We painted the doors of the land-based casinos saying, oh, now you can contact us through these WhatsApp number. So we promoted digital marketing in a very important way. So all of these efforts made people remember us so they could come to us and bet, because mainly we had two channels, the digital channel and the phone sale channel. One of the concerns that many people have is that in the case of the vendors, what has been the biggest difficulty and also the good side of things? Maybe, Tico, you can share your opinion about the biggest difficulties that you had to face as a company, and what strategy made you satisfy these needs? Thank you. Well, in pandemic times, as Gonzalo said before, one of the things that most definitely affected us was the closure of these sports events. This was unexpected, and most definitely this hit us hard because there were no sports event, because we had sports betting, and because of this reason we had to reinvent our system, and that's why we launched a new version that is included in our sports betting platform. So It helped us have online gaming and to adapt our offer for the Latin American market in terms of esports. Another thing that helped us a lot, which is something that we see in Latin America a lot, is what's related to the adaptation of our system and our offer. Everything that's included in the sports betting system, which is independent in each country. What do I mean? Our system and what has actually given us the recognition that we currently have is the adaptation of our offer to the our target, to a market target. So the offer that we have in sports, the visualization type is adapted to each one of the market independently. For example, in the Colombia market, um, uh, people bet more on soccer events, but if we see Mexico, Peru, they are more adapted to sports events in the American style. So they have a biggest percentage in basketball, HML. So this type of behavior of the market target and of the share market, market share, sorry, was what made us succeed in each region. As a vendor, I suppose that since there's a lack of live games offer because of the restrictions and so on and so forth, you had to adapt, as you said, to the new requirements. And I suppose that you consider the esports and virtual games and all of that, which you mentioned before. Can you please share with us, was that something positive, or maybe you really didn't want to move from these live sports events to virtual sports events, or did you focus on other verticals such as live casinos and slots? What was the biggest request you had in this sense? Look, most definitely, since we work with sports betting, most definitely one of the strategies that we had back then was to promote the virtual sports. We saw that people really liked it because in these times people needed something to relax a little bit. And as soon as we started with virtual games and esports, we saw that this was working, and that's because the live sports were closed. So in our operations, we also had some bets on physical events that remain in certain countries that were very well known. So this also helped a little bit, but most definitely the virtual offers were what we focused on the most, and actually helped us have an attractive offer for gamers. Virtual soccer offer, also horse races, dog races. I would like to ask Lenin now, in the same context, what were the biggest hits, and on the other hand, what were the biggest challenges? What did you find in those times that made you change your strategies? Most definitely, the impact on sports made us modify how we saw the business. It reinforced the inclusion of verticals. We did strengthen the slots and casinos in a natural way as a product of the relationship, what I mentioned, the land-based casinos, and the importance of having an extension of this. However, this opened up a door in order to include lottos, bingos, virtual games, esports even. And the main challenge for us, besides the definition of integration, which has its own complexities, for the platform in order to have an extended and robust offer that could complement until a certain point the lack of events. For us, the main challenge was how we could communicate with the customer and capitalize that offer that until a certain point was new in the eyes of the market and it was not attractive for everyone, and its goal was not to replace online betting, but actually to be a complement and to compensate where the bets were missing or lacking. So our main challenge was the relationship with the customer. One of the goals that we have always had as strategy for the platform was the personalization or customization in terms of the interaction with the customer, and we always wanted to make this go beyond automation. So this is not linked to, oh, okay, so I know it's your birthday, so I am going to send you some promotion automatically. No, the idea is to know in detail your habits and likes and interests, and so I can actually give you proposals that are aimed at you as customer or potential customer. That's where we focus. Yes, we know very well the customers of land-based casinos and slots because they have been interacting with us in the physical world, and because for a year and a half we have had these platforms. So we also had sports betting in the physical and virtual world now. However, with the inclusion of new verticals and the lack of bets, we said, okay, you know what? We have to take the next step and to know more about this in detail. So this was a strategy according to process, not in silos. So it was an end-to-end strategy where all areas intervened in order to know in depth what the customer required, with tools that could allow us with information analysis and automation. We could at the same time have a clear vision in order to contact them, and for us that was the critical element. We had a full base of offers and with a close relationship with the customers, thinking in the long term. But mainly it was about having a close relationship with the customer, and that's why we were invited to participate in a national award that is done every year through INT, which is the Mexican Institute of Teleservices, which has a sort of contest with all the CX companies. This includes everything in terms of hospitality and entertainment. So we participated with our project, and I can tell you that we won. So actually, this reflects the fact that the interaction and the knowledge of the customer in order to share specific proposals and to solve problems at that same time and to give them alternatives that are very individual, besides having a big number of offers, was the most relevant thing. Gonzalo, I wanted to ask you, do you think that one of the biggest challenges for you specifically because of the nature of your business could have been the marketing strategy? Because your marketing was really focused on one area of the game, and then you had to focus on the other side of things. So do you think that this was the biggest challenge that you had? What was the strategy that you had in order to communicate better with the customers? Well, I think that the most complex thing that we had to face was, when focusing on the digital world, was to identify the barriers that consumers had in order to go to a website. We know that in countries such as ours, Peru, internet penetration is very low, and the conventional payment methods are, it's also very low so we had to find those pain points in the consumer when they wanted to go to a website. So we determined that one of the things was we had a minimum amount that was quite high, actually. And this was linked to the fees that the payment methods charged us. But we also saw that if we lowered those minimum amounts of charges, we had a very interesting amount, which helped us to negotiate with the payment methods, and we improved that situation. Another pain point that we found was the payments themselves, or actually the withdrawals from customers. Usually, the industry in Peru usually has been paying in 4 or 5 business days. Once people made their deposits and then they wanted to collect, we told them, you know what, we're going to pay in 48 hours. And then they said, but why? If I am making a deposit quickly and you can accept the money quickly, why don't you pay me quickly as well? So now we're working very intensely in order to make pretty much online payments. And this is not easy because we still depend on the bank platforms. We've had to make some integrations with some companies who disperse funds. But I believe that finding these pain points within the markets where we operate is fundamental. It sounds quite obvious, but many times our drive doesn't allow us to see these things. So that's why we have set some milestones and we have been a benchmark for our competitors who had been operating for a long time in the Peruvian market, because they've seen that our website has has an increasing number of visits, and you cannot see our operations in analytics, but Apuesta Total is becoming more and more important in the digital world. So we're going to keep reinforcing this without forgetting about our horizon, which is the retail world. The bad thing about this year is that we don't know what its behavior is going to be, so we're going to keep pushing both channels because we believe in the importance of both. Excellent. I think that Mr. Enrique Romero is already here with us. Welcome. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Everything's well here. Excellent. Enrique, he's a marketing manager from Macbeth. Enrique, we are here discussing with the rest of the people in the panel about what made the whole industry, especially the retail industry, to move to the online world because of the pandemic. So now in this post-pandemic world, what did you identify as a company? What were the different marketing strategies that you needed to think of in order to position yourself in the online world? Well, I think that the industry is still suffering the struggles of the pandemic. I think that we cannot talk about post-pandemic yet because I think that we would be approaching it in a wrong way. And I think that there are countries such as Chile that is still suffering, and trust was actually a problem, and everyone went out to the streets willing to go back to their normal life. However, unfortunately, it's still not possible. Many establishments have been closed as well because of the sanitary measures. Others are opening regardless of the restrictions. So I think that the retail sector it still has more to go. We still need to cover a lot of vaccines in order to lower risks. But I think that the digital world is compensating really well all of that lack of establishments. From your point of view as a company, I know that you're very strong on the online world. So what adjustments that you had to make? For example, when sports betting content was restricted? What was the biggest challenge that you had in order to satisfy these so operations weren't so impacted? Well, we wanted to improve the platform. We took advantage of the time, and we still do so. We're constantly optimizing our platform. We want to have an optimal service, and Lenin knows numbers in Mexico increased a little bit and then they dropped a little bit, but then the level we recovered the same level. So we use those times to improve our cashier, our internal manuals, our procedures. So at the end of the day, users thank us for this because that means that we are adapting ourselves to the reality that the planet is going through. Right. And now, in terms of the segments that need to be incorporated in your platforms, you had to do adjustments in terms of content, some other types of verticals that are alternative verticals to what's common, for example, sports betting and casinos like slots, live casinos. Yes, most definitely. We had a bigger range of options and games and all entertainment alternatives for users. But we also improved some other things. For example, we changed our welcome for the people who came to our casino. We also are trying to change our welcome to the sports betting. So these are improvements that at the end of the day is going to allow us to have a better performance. And when the car is already moving, it's very difficult to stop just to make improvements or to do upgrades to our service, which it seems like a paradox. But in that sense, it has helped us to improve the welcome offers, the different alternatives that we had. We're improving our customer service. We're also working on the staff who works with us. We have improved in that sense as well. The industry in general was really afraid of massive fires. We saw this in Gibraltar. However, in our particular case, it helped us to reorganize tasks and improve procedures. So I think that there was a lot of bad things. There were a lot of bad things in this pandemic, in this particular situation, but we should see the positive side of things, which is to reorganize ourselves. I wanted to ask you one last question. As operators, what was the biggest challenge or the biggest difficulty that you had? And what did you learn from that in order to have a bigger penetration in the online world? Well, I think that the biggest challenge that all of us went through was a couple of weeks or even a couple of months in which there were no soccer leagues, there were no professional sports. Maybe there was only the Nicaragua League, so we put a little bit of that. But now that most of leagues are back and that most seems to be normal, again, at least in the sports side, we're trying to make improvements. For example, in the quotas, we're trying to improve prices. We are also improving payments in combined bets. We are giving an extra percentage by default, so it's not something that you have to comply with certain conditions. No, that's automatic. So we're also improving what we offer to the markets. We have more time now, so we saw that we needed to have open markets a lot faster in order to actually compete in the market. So we are doing that more, and our app, for example. In Mexico, apps are going to be allowed now for Android in the Play Store official site. So we're developing all of this. So at certain point, once we go back to normal, we can be very well organized, and why not in the meantime as well? Because maybe before we can go back to normal, we can be ready and adapted for users in this new way. Excellent. Thank you very much. And well, thank you everyone for giving your input, Enrique, Lenin, Diego, Gonzalo. The organization is very pleased with you. You are a very excellent panel. You're an excellent panel, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon. Thank you. Thank you, Axel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. The panel has been quite important. I think that the Latin American industry needs to hear from expert operators and vendors so they can see that you sit together in a panel and freely discuss in the benefit of our industry. The physical world has been really hit, retails as well. There is a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen, if we're going to open or not. Should we go to the online world? Should we keep the bets? The events have been suspended. So we have been adapting constantly, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So thank you for participating. Thank you for sharing your secrets, so to speak. So some of the information can help to our clients and our audience in Latin America to make progress. Obviously, your contacts are here so the audience can contact you and do some business together. And hopefully, we can see each other very soon. Hope you to see at the Dominican Republic at the end of the year if the conditions allow it. We'll see each other face to face. So thank you very much, and it has been a pleasure. Take care. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.